You are listening to a recording from the Cooperating to Build a Better Nova Scotia conference in Halifax, a celebration marking the United Nations International Year of Cooperatives.
Now we'd like to welcome to the program Peter Hough. Peter comes to us from the Canadian Worker Co-op Federation. Again, I'm here, Erin Hancock from the Canadian Cooperative Association and also the Measuring the Cooperative Difference Research Network.
Thank you, Erin. And I'm here with some folks from Patterson Law in Truro and Halifax. And we're just going to talk about a number of issues. We're going to talk a bit about there's a new legal network that's being developed through Co-op Zone across Canada. And Patterson Law has been developing a specialty practice in cooperative law. And they're going to give us a bit of advice in terms of around cooperatives, in terms of what are some of the issues and what are some of the things that you need to do to keep your legal costs under control. Not in their interest, but in our cooperative's interest. But we'll start by just having each one of them introduce themselves quickly, and then we'll start the discussion.
My name is George White. I'm a lawyer and partner at Patterson Law. I practice in the area of business law. I've been practicing since 1975, and I've worked with cooperatives since over 30 years.
And I'm Jennifer Hamilton-Upham, and I am also with Patterson Law, obviously, and I've been there since 2004, so for a while, practicing with cooperatives and also corporate commercial and tax law as well.
And I'm Joel Henderson. I also practice corporate commercial law at Patterson, and with a side business in insolvency law as well, and I'm part of the co-op practice group.
Thank you. Well, we're going to start by just talking a bit about the new legal network. Co-op Zone is a network of co-op developers across Canada. It's a separately incorporated federally cooperative, and it's been working with some of the lawyers that have belonged to it in the past to try and develop a network of co-op lawyers across Canada and other legal folks involved in legal services in the cooperative sector. So I'm just wondering if we could hear a bit from you, George, as to why your firm has been interested in participating in this network and what's your take on what the network's trying to accomplish.
Well, thank you. The network is really trying to accomplish various objectives, and for different lawyers that are in the group, the objectives may vary somewhat. Our particular interest, I think, was the resource opportunity of a network of lawyers across the country, so that if we're serving co-ops with particular problems or challenges, we, through the use of this network, can identify if there are other lawyers in other jurisdictions of Canada that have had experience with a similar kind of problem and might help us in seeking a solution to the problem. And we've certainly identified in the meetings with this network, which is really just in the formative stages, that's one of our objectives, and many of the others have indicated that they share that objective as well. Another objective is to encourage the education and training of lawyers with respect to co-op issues and serving the co-op sector, so that there's a better informed legal bar available to serve the co-op sector.
Great, thank you. Would either of you other folks like to make a comment?
Well, I think we are just recognizing that co-ops are different and that we need to explore how to make what we do every day as lawyers in corporate commercial law, which usually kind of revolves around private businesses, fit for co-ops and the different kind of values that they have, and figuring out what other people are doing and how their legislation is different and changing and how maybe we can encourage ours to change also kind of helps us too.
Okay, thanks very much. I understand that you've recently just formed a specialized practice in terms of for cooperatives within your firm. Would you like to talk a bit about that, why you've done it and what you think the benefits are and how you're promoting yourselves to within the cooperative sector?
Well, the idea really was suggested to us from somebody who's been actively involved in the cooperative sector here in Nova Scotia for many years, who spoke with Joel, who's a member of our group, and indicated, look, your firm has served many cooperatives and been involved and has experience with co-op legal problems. Why don't you form a group? Why don't you actively identify to the co-op sector that you have some expertise in that area. So we had discussions internally about it, and we approached our management of our firm, and we concluded that we would form this group, and we see it as serving many purposes from our perspective. One is it encourages the team approach within the firm itself, so that if there is an issue to be dealt with on behalf of a cooperative, those who are experienced in it in our group will be involved in attempting to work with a solution, and we will work on a team basis so that we share the experiences of one another and sort of the resource base of some other lawyers' knowledge within the firm that may have better experience in a particular problem area. So we see it as that kind of team effort internally, and externally we see it as a way of being able to inform the co-op sector that we are committed to providing good quality legal services to the co-op sector. We've had experience with it, and we know some of the problems that are unique to that sector, and you don't have to spend dollars educating us on the co-op legislation, the co-op scheme, the co-op way of doing business, and the co-op culture. And so it's really a combination of the internal and the external that's sort of driven us to form this group, and we're really excited about it. And it's fortunate that it happens to come at the same time as the formation of, on a national basis, of this Lawyers Legal Network.
Joel, you're part of this group. What has excited you about wanting to participate in the group within your firm?
I guess it's the opportunity to work in a very important and unique niche within the Nova Scotia economy, which is the co-op sector. And I was, as George said, approached by a very deeply involved person in the co-op sector about this originally, and that's from where our discussions began. But really, Patterson has had experience doing co-op law for over 30 years in George's case, and Martina, who's not with us tonight as well, has been with the firm for many years as well. So we have collectively a lot of experience and exposure in different areas and with different problems. I mean, of course, some legal problems of the co-op sector are the same as anybody's legal problems, but they have their unique issues, and thanks to the years of experience and attention that we've paid to these problems, we're able to serve them better, and that's very exciting that we can now package this up in a practice group and market it to the sector. And I think it speaks well of the sector itself that it has a critical mass that can support a specialized practice area in a professional firm like ours.
That's great. Thank you. Okay, so I think we're going to move on to ask the question in terms of particular legal issues that cooperatives may have. So is there, if you were talking about for a startup cooperative, is there particular issues that you think that they need to be aware of and should engage some legal advice with? Or what are other key issues that different stage cooperatives might confront that would come up from legal issues?
Well, I think first it's useful to kind of take a step back and to look at the cooperative in the context of the cooperative way of doing business and the cooperative legislation. A co-op is unique from other forms of business organizations. It's not a business corporation that is designed to increase the wealth of its members, but rather it is an organization that's serving a particular purpose, as has been explained in the presentation at the beginning of this conference. And the cooperatives operate within an environment of the cooperative legislation, either provincial legislation or federal legislation, and that's significantly different than the legislation that applies to business corporations. The concept of one member, one vote, the concept of the involvement of the inspector of cooperatives in the province in terms of approving certain decisions that are made by cooperatives, the whole concept of the role of members of the cooperative make it unique and as a result of that, from a legal perspective, it means that that certain challenges have to be addressed to deal with the combination of relationships of members as they are operating in their collective fashion, and interrelate that with the business objectives in today's world, which is a pretty tough world from a competitive business perspective.
Thank you. Any other comments from colleagues?
Well, co-ops face a lot of the same things that other businesses face, but they have to approach it in a different way. Like if they're looking at merging or acquisitions of businesses or financing, all of those things are just a little bit different in how they can do it. So the legal services that they face are those same main issues, but they're just approached and solved in a different way.
If a co-op is borrowing and it's going to mortgage its real estate, for example, unlike a business corporation, a co-op has to pass a special resolution of its members and has to receive the approval of the Inspector of Cooperatives in Nova Scotia. So that procedure in and of itself is different. A co-op can also raise financing and capital through borrowing from its members, and that could involve savings certificates, or it could involve member loans and so forth. So those situations require policy on the part of the board, so there's a clear understanding what the terms and conditions are as between the members that have provided this loan, whether it be with a withholding or an actual investment of a certificate and so forth. So these are opportunities that are relatively unique to co-ops because of the diverse membership base, and yet require therefore policies established by the board, so it's clear what the terms and conditions of that financing are as provided by its member base.
Okay, I'm going to throw you a bit of a curve that we didn't talk about before as we were organizing our talk tonight, but one of the interesting areas for co-op development at the moment is actually looking at, and there's a workshop tomorrow in the conference here, is basically looking at co-ops as successions for retiring owners. So I'm just thinking, would you have any advice for co-ops that were starting, basically the kinds that I've been involved with and been either consumer co-ops or worker co-ops, in which the employees in a worker co-op would be purchasing the business that they have been working in and converting it to a cooperative, or a community is purchasing a business that's existing in that community at this time but is going to close because the owner is retiring. So what are the kinds of issues, or could you briefly say what are the sort of some of the key issues that both the cooperative and the business might want to focus on in that kind of circumstance?
Well, an initial one, of course, is to have a business plan to make sure you have projections so that you know whether it financially will be viable. And if it's a business that is marginal at the present time, why you think, because of the enhanced base offered through a diverse membership, that you're going to be able to increase your economic activity to make it viable. So I think a business plan is a very important part of it. The second part of it is is really the governance that you want to have for the cooperative, and that involves how are you going to raise capital if capital is needed on an ongoing basis, what are the expectations of members in terms of rebates, and then talk about succession. Well, within the co-op itself, you have to have a succession plan in terms of from the perspective of board of governors and governing, from the perspective of the rollover of capital over a period of time if capital is built up by members. In some co-ops there is significant capital, in others it's only nominal, so it depends on the nature of the cooperative and the initial capitalization plan for it. So I would say that the two key areas are really governance and business plan projections.
Okay. Your colleagues have any Any other comments?
Well, just along with governance, I guess, is having key people in there with clear kind of roles and objectives of how they're managing the business. So whether you're talking about somebody kind of leaving who's been running the business for a long time, and having other people that may not be as experienced in the management roles. So having some people in there that really know what they're doing, but having clear management agreements in place that spell out what exactly you're expecting from them, which goes along with the business plan, I guess, in a way, but just clear expectations too.
And I suppose as well, picking up on the theme that the people who may be taking over the business have not had the experience of actually running the business, although they may have a lot of experience doing the actual transactions or the commercial activity of the business, that it's never too early to call on a professional advisor. This may sound like a plug for us, but it's also a plug for accountants and a plug for business valuators and other professionals who can help you to plan early, to see problems arising, to make a plan to deal with problems before they hit home, before you are having your loans called or foreclosure threatened or something like that. It's good to get out in front of problems, and it's cheaper usually to try and solve them proactively rather than react to some calamity later down the road.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay. I think we're going to end off by just talking about, actually it was a good segue into that, talking about how can co-ops best make sure that they keep their legal fees reasonable and yet still make sure that they, get the proper services that they need when they need them.
We've identified, I think, 10 key steps to managing your legal costs properly. And Jennifer here has written down those items on the list. And so, Jennifer, why don't you start us off?
Well, the first thing was exactly what Joel had said, that you should involve professionals at an early stage. But not only that, you should also be giving that professional all the relevant information so that they can properly advise you on your situation. If you're withholding anything, then it really makes it difficult for you to get a clear picture of what you need to do.
Another item that we've identified on the list is use a professional, whether it's a lawyer, an accountant, a tax advisor, whatever professional you're dealing with. Use one that's experienced in the subject matter that you're particularly dealing with.
Also, controlling the timing, so it's often much more expensive if you're starting and stopping rather than proceeding on a continuous basis, because every time that the professional needs to get their head back into that file and into what's going on, and things may have changed also in the interim period, it does tend to cost a little more.
Another way to manage your legal costs is to communicate successfully with the client, and that is between the lawyer and the client, and for a client co-op to identify one person who is a spokesperson, so that instead of the lawyer or your professional having to deal with different members of the board or different officers and sometimes even different factions, although lawyers can assist in mediation, but if you're trying to control costs, get your act together, have a spokesman who has authority to communicate with the professional, to give good, clear instructions, and to receive advice.
Or spokesperson, George.
Yeah, right.
And of course, it's always good to have a budget in place for legal fees. If a co-op or any business is entering into some kind of transaction, be it a growth strategy or reorganization strategy, or as you just talked about, succession, there has to be a budget for some legal fees. If you're borrowing money or raising capital through other means, preference shares, borrowing from the members, there needs to be a little bit of money there for the legal fees, and it's good to sort of suss that out in the beginning, get an idea of what it might cost, because there will be real costs involved.
And of course, one way to manage your legal costs is to minimize your legal costs, and through proper risk management, you perhaps can minimize unfortunate contingencies that otherwise could result in significant legal costs. So be diligent with your operations, have a good risk management plan, have people properly trained, have people educated, and a board that understands the principles and practices the principles of good governance and good business practices by your management and employee team members.
we've kind of combined a number of our top 10 into a couple of points. So I think the last one is really just to follow the advice. Sometimes, you get advice from your professionals, but you don't necessarily follow it. And then looking back on it, you may regret that a little bit later when we're trying to fix the mistakes at a later date.
I would say especially we see from time to time people standing on principle rather than following advice or staying focused on the bottom line and the sustainability of the organization, maybe getting caught up in the politics or the acrimony, say, if they're dealing with a difficult counterparty in a transaction. And it's best to just stay the course and remember what your ultimate goal is, which is a sustainable business organization or cooperative organization.
Okay, well, thank you very much. This has been really interesting, and I think it's really, as someone that's been involved in co-op development for the last 25 years, and the question always comes up, do you have any lawyers you can recommend? It's very exciting from my perspective, and I know other developers across the country, to see the formation of the legal network. And I'm really looking forward to seeing this unfold. And it's great having your practice focusing here in Nova Scotia, so that those of us that do work here in Nova Scotia now do know a firm that we can refer people to with confidence. Thanks very much. Any last things you'd like to say?
Well, we would like to thank you very much for taking the time with this interview. We would like to thank the Nova Scotia Cooperative Council that has provided us with much guidance and assistance, in particular Diane Kelderman, who has made and is making an outstanding contribution to the cooperative movement, and we'd like to thank her for her assistance.
Okay, thanks very much.